So we are side-dressing anhydrous ammonia. And what this is, it is fertilizer for the corn. At some point, some application, you need this fertilizer. If you do not have it, it just will not produce an ear. But what we have is anhydrous, which is 82% nitrogen, and it is applied by pressure, so that tank is pressurized, and that big hose runs down to a ground-driven pump, which pulls it out of the tank, and it goes from there through a series of hoses down into knives that have hoses hooked onto them. And so it starts out as a liquid and turns into a gas as it enters the soil. So that is in theory of how all this works. And we've currently got my son Chase. He's the operator of this rig, doing a heck of a job. So yeah.
Get out of my face.
Alright, so we got a lot of guys running in this area, and currently just showing Chase how to run this, but we got Rob pulling tanks to us, and Buck is going to be running a second bar, and we're also going to get a third bar picked up. So we will be running 3 bars to try to get all this knocked out pretty quick. So gorgeous day for it. Well, Chase and I just got moved up here to Mom's and just sat in. This is not the bar we were running earlier this morning, but we had just sat in and blew what we call a diaphragm. What that is, and I don't technically know all the names to these things, but so this is the pump. So how this works, if you have the anhydrous liquid form in the tank, you have this ground drive with the pump on top that the big hose from the tank is more or less going to. So what happens is there is a diaphragm, like a rubber gasket, inside here. And I don't know if it's just the pressure or if this stuff just gets so cold that you will blow these. And in order to change that, you've got to bleed this whole system. And you just pray you've got a decent breeze to do it. So I have, and there's pitcocks. I've got her bleeders. I got all them open, tank shut off. We've got this kind of bolts on, kind of like that. But you want to make sure it's all bled out before you take that loose. So from there, we will pull these 4 bolts. We can pull this back half off, and then we got a small gasket, and we put this big one on, and then we just bolt it back together. We should be good. It just varies year to year. I think we run a red and a blue one. I think this red one last year, I think it blew, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so. I ran the blue one and might have blown 1. So it just varies, but anyway, we'll get this switched out real quick and we'll get going. Well, good evening, guys. So this right here is the anhydrous tank, and our hose will hook onto this fitting right here with this valve. This holds the anhydrous ammonia. It is pressurized in liquid form, so you've got the hitch. So we come over here. So this is where the tank hooks onto, right here, with what we call a hitch pin. So we get it hooked up. We have this big hose right here that has a valve on it also. Be careful, it's pressurized. So it's got the valve here to shut it off, and this is the actual fitting that screws onto the tank. And so what happens, you open this valve and you open that valve on the tank over there. That will pressurize the system. And then what happens when you let this bar, when you let it down to the ground, that is, you got one hydraulic to raise and lower the bar. So you lower it down, then you've got the second hydraulic to raise and lower this ground pump. And when it goes to the ground, this tire runs on the ground and turns that chain, turns the pump, starts pumping fluid through, I don't know all the terms of these things, so bear with me here. Pumps into there, and I believe that's the heat exchanger. And so anyway, from there it disperses into the knives. And the knives run in the ground, and this is the trench that the knives make. And so, I don't know, they're probably going in the ground, oh my, 6-8 inches, I would guess. And what you have here are row protectors. These just run alongside and protect the row because there's a lot of dirt flying on both sides. And so it kind of protects it and actually keeps that dirt in the center, and it'll actually help seal it too. And so as your implement's down, your pump is down, your ground pump's spinning, so it is pumping liquid. It is pumping it through a series of hoses that run everywhere through here. I mean, there's a lot of extra hose because you may catch something, you may break a hose, so you have to cut it off and put it like this. They give you quite an extra loop there. But so anyway, it is. So at that point, it is pumped through the hoses, and it goes down through the knife. And there is a tube here that's hollow. And then, if you can see that, there's holes on both sides. And that is where the gas shoots out both sides as it's in the ground. So once it hits oxygen, once it hits air, it turns to a gas. And so, in a nutshell, that is how an anhydrous bar applicator works. There are different ways you can apply it. You do not have to side dress like we are doing. You can pre-plant. There's just a few other ways you can do it, but this is the way we like to do it. You know, that is 82% nitrogen in that tank. So we think it responds better, the corn does. And plus, as you've got the corn planted, you've taken some pretty good beaten rains. Some could have been hard, that had, kind of sealed this ground over pretty good. And so you're coming through, you're busting this ground up, you're adding a little air, you're just opening things up, letting everything breathe. And that's how it works. Good morning. We had a pretty good week so far, side dressing, a little over 1,000 acres, probably 1,100 side dressed. We spotted in some corn the past couple days, and unfortunately we ended up with probably close to an inch of rain overnight. So that has the ponds full of water again. But we were fairly dry. We really needed a drink around here anyway, so what water is there should get away pretty quick. So we're gonna head to the farm, kind of regroup, see what's on the agenda today. Got a few things I can think of, but yeah, come along, enjoy. Alright, made it to the farm and I forgot. We had an alternator go out in my 8400 and we were actually just down the road from the farm, so one of the guys grabbed the Duramax and tow strap and hooked onto him and got him pulled back this way. But you ever seen anything like that? Blew a baseball size hole in that coolant reservoir. Look at that. That is crazy. I mean, just made a mess everywhere. I don't know. He said he had it in 4 low. It was pulling hard. I don't know if it was in 4 high, but anyway, I don't know if that matters to a point, but that is crazy. I've never seen that before. I mean, it just looked like something just blew right out. Heck, it looks almost melted too at the bottom. I don't know. We'll replace it, fix it. Hopefully it didn't hurt the motor or anything. But so we got the 8400 off. We got the little 6400 that generally just sees the batwing mower there. But so we got it thrown on. I think we lost the alternator here. Called John Deere, and oh my gosh, yeah, you can imagine. I think they wanted $700-800 for a brand new alternator. Isn't that crazy? So I'll go a different route there for sure. Yeah, we'll get that ripped off, get a new one coming there, and yeah, we'll see what else we got we can get into here. So, oh yeah, there's Raleigh girl. Yeah, sweet Raleigh girl. All right, guys. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do before we mess with this is we're going to want to unhook the batteries, because there's some connections up here. Positive post that we are not going to want to, we don't want to ground that out. So you're always just better off disconnecting the batteries. Then you can do all your work in there and not have to worry about anything. But so we get that, then we got to get this belt off. So there's a tension idler inside here, so we'll get that released, we'll get that belt loose, and then this should pull off pretty easy with just 2 bolts holding it to the frame. And then I'm gonna have the positive, looks like a little clip back here, and we should get that out. I don't know if that is bad, but we tried to drag it yesterday, so I may just take it in and I'll just have them run it and test it, and we'll either get a new one, or we'll at least we'll eliminate that. So I don't think it would be the batteries, but you never know. I mean, they are 19 batteries, so you know, stranger things have happened. Sometimes anymore you don't get, you might get a year out of these things, or you might get 5. It's just hard telling. So anyway, we'll get set up, we'll get this ripped off and get her to town. Okay, we got the battery cables off. We're just gonna go through and clean all these terminals. We'll just get everything clean, then we'll get the tester and we'll drag these batteries. We'll just once again eliminate this, make sure they are good. And then at that point, we'll start ripping the alternator off. Okay, I tested that bottom battery. So, with everything hooked up. So we go through here, currently showing 11.68. Scroll through. And we want to make sure our cold cranking amps are set per what the battery says, and we are. Now we're going to test. Okay, it says it's okay, needs recharged, and that's what the bottom one said. So we'll get those charged, get that alternator ripped off. Alright, just got back. We got a new alternator picked up. Actually saved a lot of money. I think Deere was Gosh, I think they were around $600. But $230. Alright. That back on. At the positive on the ground. Now we will hook the batteries back up. So the batteries were a little low. So I drug them, as you saw earlier. Tested those, and everything was good. They checked out okay, so. Well, we'll see if this works. Let's see if we got at least 14 volts charging. There we go. That's what we want. All right, we're gonna hook this 8400 back up to the drill, and that's actually what we're going to be spotting in a few beans if it dries out again. But yeah, it pays to shop around when it comes to stuff like that, instead of just going with, you know, your manufacturer of whatever it is, if it's Deere, if it's Case. So it was a Denko, I think it was Denko alternator anyway, so pretty standard. But it is pretty crazy how I can go from, my gosh, $600-700 for an alternator to $237 is what I paid, so kind of nice. The pin and get it in there. All right, Buck's currently hooking up the safety chain. We got the hydraulics hooked up. This one tends to leak down a little bit. The cylinder's got a slow leak, so that's even. We do have this stop that you can lock it, but even when that's locked, it wants to creep down. So we'll get her raised back up here and get her parked.